I'd like to welcome Alexandria Bellas because she self-identifies as a person on the spectrum and came to that realization somewhat later in life. So in this discussion of adult diagnosis, we felt that she would be a good person to talk to. So Alex, when did you first believe yourself to be ASD, and what were the indicators that you had that made you feel that way?
Well, I never really identified as ASD. I always thought the reason I made the discovery was because of Asperger's, because I never really found myself fitting under the autism spectrum, as mostly what I knew of it was being quite severe uh, difficulties, and because all my friends were autistic, and I knew I had some similarities to them, but they were quite a bit younger, like in their 20s and stuff. So that's what I've always thought that, that there was something I was having a lot of difficulty with, and it was mostly relationships with people all my life, and caused me a lot, unbelievable amount of trouble, I guess you'd say.
So you're saying that the area where you had that the indicators that you had were around personal and personal, professional, and social relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Did you seek any confirmation? Did you at any point seek a diagnosis?
Well, I didn't seek a. I researched a professional diagnosis, but most of it was done by myself through internet information on mostly relating to Asperger's. But then when I saw that they usually, they always want to diagnose you from a child or what you were like as a child, and I had no support people to go to the through the diagnosis process with me. I had no parents and no siblings that would support me, so that was number one reason why I got discouraged.
But the reason why you felt you had no support, was that because they didn't, you didn't to them see like you fit their idea of a typical person with autism? Was that the reason why, for the lack of support among your family?
Yeah, and my age, like I was 55 years old, so I didn't need it for financial reasons or for anything that would help me in the future. In a way, it's also because of my generation being brought up that you're not important, and that you don't matter and all that. So I didn't think I was important enough.
But you were persistent. It sounds like you continued to investigate online and through your own personal research. What do you think it was that drove you to explore that aspect? What was not working for you that made you feel that you needed to investigate that further?
Well, when I did do the self-diagnosis, my whole life changed, and I began to accept myself for what how my life had gone, and sort of under a lot of understanding came in, and I didn't think of myself as just being a bad seed, or like just like I just had no idea um, why I was the way I was.
When you came to a self-diagnosis, that was a liberating thing for you.
Hmm. Oh
It
yeah.
was it helped you accept yourself and understand yourself. Um,
Yeah, totally, completely. Um, you know, if I can bring this up, I know it's kind of heavy, but I had a lot of suicidal um, episodes in my life, and this just like brought it all together to realize, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't.
so you feel that if you had had that understanding of yourself, that identity earlier on, that could have prevented some of those some of that negative self-image and some of that um, sense of being inadequate that you would have.
Oh, totally. Yeah. If I what I learned having two brothers and two sisters was how to copy at people. Like I became a mimic, and I totally lost myself. I didn't have my own personality. I was always trying to fit in and act like other people to fit in.
You know, the counter argument to getting a diagnosis is that some people feel it places too much emphasis on a disability and that autism is really an alternate way of seeing the world. And so, whereas you experience liberation in coming to terms with that identity, some people feel that that's putting them in a box that's limiting. Do you understand or share that aspects of that point of view?
I do because having to be diagnosed, they have to have some kind of place to put you, some category, and because they've dropped the Asperger's and as well. But it is a label, and most of my life, even after I understood it, and I was on the spectrum, I never told people, and I never ever told an employer, and I never ever till recently told medical people, like when I went in the hospital. Now I'm very out front, say I'm autistic when they ask me, do you have any medical conditions? And it makes a world of difference.
Does it feel good to have come to that place where you can openly say, I'm autistic?
Yes, I find that the medical profession understands more now. Like they're getting it, I don't know if it's in their medical training, but I'm an advocate for autistic people, and I think the more people speak out and identify themselves, even though they would never know by looking at me or speaking to me, I have to tell them.
Do you think it would have had a positive impact on you that you might have suffered fewer mental health challenges if you had been able to identify as autistic earlier on?
I think my life would have been different if maybe I'd like the boys do, they act out and then they get attention, right?
Right.
I had one fellow tell me that he actually stabbed somebody with scissors to get attention that he needed, the help that he needed. So I never did anything to uh, make that happen.
Those characteristics that you describe of suppressing, feelings and mimicking behaviors, those are two of the reasons why girls still to this day are not as readily diagnosed. So what you're describing is something that I think a lot of girls have felt. The fact that you identify and you're more open about being on the spectrum is likely to help expand people's understanding of what autism is and who is autistic.
Yeah, because, to tell you the truth, there's not a lot of seniors on the spectrum out there. Living a long life on the spectrum is quite something to you have to work at like every day.
Let's close with that. The idea of, um, for people today, what do you think are meaningful ways to support people on the spectrum, both mature adults like yourself and also the younger people coming behind you?
Well, I've always wanted to try and learn more about relationships, and I think relationships are the key focus for meaning in your life.